Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shay Douglas, and I'm here with Dennis O'Connor from Awakening in Health. Today, we're going to have a really exciting conversation about the infamous Weston A. Prince, who I have just come to know through Dennis, and he's going to shed some light on who this man is, why he's so significantly important, why no one knows about him, and why people must know about him now more than ever. So it's an exciting time. But before we get in that, I want to invite you and just remind you to find great content from this conversation that Dennis and I have had for many months now. You can find it in the back end, in the membership site of Earth Heroes TV. It just looks like this. We have such a diverse range of professionals, health doctors, permaculturists, yoga teachers, whole variety of amazing content that is aimed to help elevate consciousness on this planet at this time. Really exciting time to be alive in the world. You can cycle through. There's a huge amount of great content on there, from documentaries to self-help information and consciousness expanding content, really conscious content that is awe-inspiring. And Dennis and I have had many great conversations, from germ theory to vitamin D, and it's getting huge tractions. It's going viral, and I want to just invite you, if you're interested, just click the link in the descriptions. I'll also drop it in the comments, and you can join us there. Otherwise, today I want to focus on the Isaac Newton of today's world. Dennis, who is this man, Weston A. Prince?
Weston A. Price. Like the price of a cup of tea. Yes. And again, we go down these little rabbit holes about these lots of chats, and it's quite incredible to me that I only stumbled across this guy probably about 5 years ago, and that's after 20 odd years in health. And when I first was looking into him a little bit more, when you just do a Google search on this guy, you get on the top of the Google list these fact checkers and these sites that essentially demonize the work he's done.
Interesting. So is this guy still alive?
No, he's just from memory. I think he died around 1948, and he was born in Cleveland in around the 1870s, somewhere around there, 1872, 73, maybe, from memory. But yeah, he has passed away since, but he still has what is called the Weston A. Price Foundation, and they've got a website, and they put lots of quite incredible information on that website.
You're right. I just found the website. Here it is, the Weston A. Price Foundation, the wise traditions in food farming and the healing arts. Just flicking down. So tell me, why is this guy so significant? Why do we need to know about him? And tell us more about
Everybody's got to know about this guy. Sure. So this guy was a dentist. He trained as a dentist, and when he was going kind of through his career, he just noticed this continual, I guess, stream of people whose teeth were terrible. So this is around the industrial age, the industrial revolution age. It's all around the early 1900s, and these guys had black teeth and crooked teeth and funny jaws and whatnot. And he was kind of following the traditional dentistry principles, which were fairly unsophisticated. Essentially, they just involved ripping out your teeth with these kind of implements that looked like you could use them on horses, and that was it. And if you were lucky, you didn't die of some kind of nasty infection because of a tooth abscess. And he got to thinking that this wasn't right, so he started traveling around. He first of all started traveling around the States and around Canada, and he was looking at indigenous tribes, and then he extended his search much further and started traveling all around the world to indigenous locations. And he wrote a book. The book, the name escapes me at the moment, but it's packed with these incredible pictures of these more less industrialized groups of people, I guess, for want of a better description, with absolutely perfect straight teeth. So not only did he document why this might be happening, but he started to form a lot of different hypotheses about why this might have been happening. And his conclusions at the end of decades of research are absolutely profound, and they're exceptionally valid today.
Super interesting, dude. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm super excited to have this conversation with him. It seems, it's so funny. There's a movie by a guy, Australian fella. It's called That Sugar Film, and they look at the United States, and the teeth are just gone on these people. And a lot of that had to do with also diet choices, sugar intake, artificial foods, and it seems that he's obviously invested and knowledgeable and credible in the space of health and wellness, particularly looking at being a dentist, looking at the teeth health. Could you explain more how he's got qualifications to be able to make discerning decisions on where we're at in its time today, with everything that's going on in the world around health and well-being, and how that interconnects into self responsibility as to choosing what we put into our bodies?
Sure. So I guess in his favor, the first kind of tick the box that you tick in his favor is the fact that he wasn't an expert in that particular field. So by default, he didn't have the indoctrination and the mistakes in training that could corrupt his thinking. So he was a dentist who ended up looking at nutrition and health. And as a result, he was already outside that normal mainstream health paradigm, so he could actually check into things differently. And bear in mind, this guy died in the 1940s, and the fact that his work is relevant more than about 100 odd years later, 80 years later, is absolutely astonishing. And it goes way deeper than just things that we're putting into our mouth that affect directly our teeth. There's much more issues. And this guy basically was one of the first guys to come up with this, I guess, platform that we can look at, where we look at the effect of not only sugary foods, but processed foods and hydrogenized oils. And his conclusions based on how he was formatting the importance of how your teeth are formed are just absolutely on point, and they are rock solid still today. So essentially, there's a few things that happen when we have a non-natural diet. And one of the problems with a non-natural diet is the fact that as kids, we're fed this kind of processed mush. And as a result, our jaw development and our face development doesn't go through the processes that it did hundreds of years ago. And if you think about it, if you think about cows, if you think about horses, there's a few exceptions in animal groups, but for mammals, I can't think offhand any mammal that has teeth that are crooked, apart from a few exceptions. They've all got straight teeth. You've never seen a lion with buck teeth, or a friggin', a zebra with these weird teeth sticking out. And this is the way, if we are built to develop naturally. The other thing, which is really quite important, is breastfeeding, because breastfeeding actually uses lots of different muscles, and this actually changes how your face develops as a child. So this progression onto something that's much more unnatural, which is a teat on a bottle as opposed to a breast, actually changes the way your mouth and your face forms. Now, if you add into that micronutrients, which are really important for bone growth and development, all of a sudden, not only are you not pulling your facial muscles around, your jaw structure around by using your facial muscles, but the other thing that's happening is, in order for those muscles to grow properly, it doesn't happen. And he's one of the people who identified things like vitamin D, vitamin K2, and all these things for a normal bone structure. So we think that our teeth are kind of sticking in this area of our face, and they get stuck in the wrong place. But quite simply, it's the fact that our jaws are underdeveloped in the modern world, so we get tooth crowding. And because of tooth crowding, you get bad perfusion sometimes to your teeth, and you get tooth decay. Then you lump into that all our horrible food, which is actually directly affecting our teeth through acidity. You have just this recipe for disaster, and you have a population with dentition, which is horrendous.
Yeah, thanks for sharing on that, Dennis. It's really interesting how our health is so interconnected and related to our teeth, and it's probably a topic that, even though we're conditioned to wake up, brush our teeth, go to bed and brush our teeth, and take care of our teeth through our diet, and our upbringing based upon the way that we're raised, can really have a big impact on the way that our teeth are formed and grow over time. Super interesting. And I'm curious, why this guy got so ridiculed. Why did they shut him down? What made him so villainized when he's just trying to empower people with health?
And isn't that funny? And we've obviously alluded to this before in relation to modern health issues and pandemics and whatnot, and all these guys getting deplatformed. But what he again thought right outside the box. So he wasn't just looking at people's faces and people's teeth and, you know, just focusing on this one specific area, but he was basically the grandfather of gut health. And he, in his writings, was one of the first people to be talking extensively about the microbiome and the gut bacteria. And one of the most fascinating conclusions that he had was that we due to processed food and modern diet, we are actually not getting these really important microbes into our guts to be able to do all the right things and put all our micronutrients and our different things in our food into the right places, and hence stay healthy. And one of the things that he identified for lots of these natural tribes and lots of these indigenous areas was the fact that they had raw dairy. And now raw dairy, since the early 1900s, has been demonized as something that will imminently kill us. So when you look at Weston Price now, it's the kind of the people who vilify him are, he talks about raw dairy, this guy is dangerous, he will kill your kids and he will kill your family. And it's kind of funny that in nearly every single underdeveloped country, they don't tamper with their dairy. They're drinking milk almost essentially from cows. I did it when I was a kid. My grandparents had farms, so I literally drank milk almost directly from cows. And we've talked about this before, but in around the early 1900s, this is when Mr. Louis Pasteur, who I'm not such a big fan of, even though he's been idolized and put on pedestals, he was quite a big plagiarizer, and he was involved in fraudulent experiments that he made up to prove his hypothesis. I don't know if you knew about that, Mr. Pasteur, but he basically helped establish a really, really big industry, and that industry was the dairy industry. There would not be no giant dairy industry without him. So what he was saying was there was all these horrible little bugs and nasties in our milk, and we had to do things to it before it was safe. And this is obviously with no real people dying. And the big problem with what he was trying to kind of the thing about milk was all the cream would float to the top of milk. This is in the early 1900s. These clever guys worked this out. So the early people would get to the milk first. They take all the good milk, and the thinner milk would be left sitting at the bottom of these massive containers, and the farmers wouldn't be able to sell it. So these salesmen came along and essentially thought, we're going to do something about this. We're going to take all the good stuff off the top. We're going to make another industry called the cheese industry and the butter industry, and we're going to keep the shitty milk at the bottom, and we will add calcium and a few different things to it and sell it as a health food. But the other thing is, in order to take even more stuff out, we'll do this process called homogenization, which is basically push it through these kind of filters and fibers and squeeze all the good stuff out and sell that for other stuff. So essentially, we're left with this watery product that doesn't resemble what natural dairy looks like. And you've all of a sudden created, in one fell swoop, a load of different industries out of that.
Wow, super interesting, man. Like, just the history of milk, and just something that I notice even in my own body is that milk doesn't sit well with my system, actually, because whether it's pasteurized, homogenized, it could be all of the processes at all, but I get extremely mucousy, bad digestion, and not really clogged up. It doesn't help my system function very well. It's just something I've noticed ever since I was a boy. I used to get really snotty nose when I was drinking milk, and interesting.
And we have these.
Could you break down? Is it a myth that milk is good for bones, or is that real?
It's a myth. So again, everything has a nuance about it. And when I say it's a myth, we are essentially getting this product from sick animals. So if you're getting your milk and your dairy from the supermarket, essentially you're taking in toxicity and you're taking in poisons. So the whole calcium in the milk being good for your bones is really, it's very misleading. It's much less direct than that. So calcium is obviously really important, but in the wrong places, calcium is really, it can kill you. And we know this because we can get calcium plaques on our heart. We can get calcium deposits in our brain. We call it Alzheimer's. So unless you have the other stuff that directs the calcium, and I've talked about this before, vitamin K2 is especially important to direct that calcium around the place in its proper quantities. It's kind of neither here nor there that you're just putting kind of toxic dairy into your system. And then we have these kind of stories about lactose intolerance, da 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 da. And I'm not really convinced that they're actually real when we think that we are actually getting these dairy products from animals that are loaded with hormones, loaded with antibiotics, loaded with vaccinations, and are reared on absolutely horrendous food, which is making them sick. So if you're eating stuff from poison animals, maybe the milk that you're getting out of them is going to be fairly poisonous as well. So if anybody had dairy if they liked dairy and had problems with dairy, my suggestion would be to go towards a much more organic and natural style of dairy product.
Yeah, nice. Great suggestion. I love it. Thanks, Dennis. Is there anything else you wanted to share just around this famous man, Weston A. Price? Sorry, I keep calling him a Prince.
All good, all good.
Tell us a little bit about him and what he's done.
I got on my screen there, I listed some images there that I pulled from the internet. Do you want me to chuck that up? Or yeah, cool. Great. And you can kind of look. Can you see my mouse there?
No.
I don't know if it's going to catch on my mouse, but anyway, you got two pictures there which are fairly interesting. The first one, so you got a book on the far left and then one beside it, but you can see there just these indigenous people with just these incredibly healthy straight white teeth. And this is like pre-industrial, but quite a good one was the one just underneath it of the two boys standing side by side. And this, I think, was taken in the Hebrides, just from memory from the book. And the guy on the Hebrides is I'm pretty sure it's up in Scotland, but the guy on my right, which is the tall, strapping-looking guy. These guys were both twins. The guy on the right was basically stayed on the farm, and the guy on the left went to the cities. And the guy on the left is a different specimen to the guy on the right. These guys are identical twins. One is a big, strapping, young, virile-looking farmer, and the other guy is just this kind of sickish-looking, old-fashioned dude who you might see in a picture in the city.
Bit like you, Dennis. I'm just joking.
Jeez, yeah, I do like it. I like the jokes.
Good bit of banter. I'm just joking, but yeah, the point being that the natural kind of diet and lifestyle in harmony with the environment and the land and working with the hands is obviously positive and more beneficial, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But that theme of this natural, non-industrialized type of living is incredibly important. And I can see by your perfect teeth and your beautiful straight jaw there, Shay, that your parents obviously follow this guy's principles.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the privilege of growing up in far north Queensland, which is just a outdoor playground for kids and adults as well. There's so much to see and do in this beautiful region, from going out to the reef, fishing, to snorkeling, diving, as well as playing in the rainforest and the waterfalls. And I've had the real privilege of just being immersed in a natural environment, and having the experience of moving overseas and living in Milwaukee, a huge city. I noticed myself, even though I was playing sports a lot of the time, primarily soccer, being very active, I actually was getting less healthy, and I was more susceptible to injury when I was playing over there. I had a terrible diet. I was staying up late at night. I wasn't getting good sleeps, and just noticing it in my own experience, how much the environment impacts our health and our well-being, and noticing my natural thriving state come back into fruition when I placed myself in a more natural environment that was connected to the sun's natural cycle, the plants that are surrounding me. And I get it, like, not everyone can live in tropical paradise, right? However, we do have a choice in where we place our energy, where we place ourselves. And even if it's that smaller town, or even if it's in a more positive community of people, it's going to have a positive impact in the long term for our well-being, our health, and most importantly, just for our lives.
Absolutely. And I think, we can all compare ourselves to people living in different situations, and somebody has got more than other people, and some people do better. But for me, I think it's really important to hold this idea of a gradient into your mind. There's no perfect beginning and there's no perfect end. You're at a certain point along a gradient, and the idea is, if things aren't working, to push a little bit further up. So if you're not in a place with, like, the tropics where we are, then if it's winter, then you get outside more. If you're static and you're sitting around and looking at a computer screen all day, you do less of that if you're not exercising enough. So there's always changes we can make if our health is not optimized in order to lead us towards a better direction. And the important thing is getting the start. If you don't make that start, you can't get momentum up. So sometimes it's really overwhelming for people to make those changes because they think they have too much to do. But it's like the old analogy: you push a pebble down a hill and you can cause an avalanche. But it's just getting that little pebble to make that start to be able to make the changes happening. And then when you can do that, miracles can happen.
Fantastic, Dennis. I want to thank you for your time, mate, and sharing this wisdom of this man, Weston A. Price. And I love these conversations. So if you guys love them as well, please like this video, share it with your friends, leave us a comment if you don't. And we'll see you next week on Thursday afternoon. Dennis and I get together for a show on Awakening Health with the Earth Heroes TV platform. Get exclusive content when you subscribe today, 7 days free. Click the link in the description, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Shay.
Bye for now.